Hey, how are you?
How are you? What's going on?
I'm good. I'm rocking it.
Yeah, totally.
I did 1% burger. I think that's an accessory. That's a little familiar to me. Her sister recorded that.
Yeah.
This is somewhere else. I'm sorry, you're just walking the room. You might want to move that chair there.
Want to sit over here, Luke? On the couch?
I mean, I don't want to make anyone's wall.
Yeah. Here. So, just came out. I haven't shared it. All that interesting. All right. Usually, well, the difference between colors and versions. Yeah. Which difference between color signs and versions. Yeah.
class today when you said something about like listening to the song from the Barbie movie.
Mhm.
I, for a split second, I was absolutely convinced that you were about to play Matchbox 20. So I was gonna groan so
It's a little
so
hard to
badly.
see here. This does that.
Actually, I didn't even know that was.
And back here too.
Yeah.
And I know that
Oh,
song,
okay.
but I didn't know that song.
Yeah.
I was like, what did you use? Like, that's actually my only comment.
My dad is
You're gonna look over there?
a huge Matchbox 20 fan.
Really? I'm
So
sorry.
yeah.
I thought you were gonna play Push.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah.
That's
Oh, that's what you're on? Oh, yeah, okay.
Yeah. Well, we could talk about the lyrics of that song.
They're interesting.
I wanna
Yeah.
push you around, and I will, and I will. I wanna push you around, and I will. I wanna take you for granted.
I'm so glad we played the different song. I absolutely love it.
Wow. I love this use of the 6 chord. It's just amazing. But yeah, like. There's a student in my music class, mathematics theory class, saying that like there's no electric thoughts. That's an acoustic.
Oh, no, you're fine.
Did we talk about that? Why the scenes of like men are playing with acoustic guitar rather than electric guitar?
Oh, I don't know. We were like talking about how it's kind of like I think it's stereotypes and that's why like that like love on you, but it's like not really a romantic song, but like
Yeah.
and I think that might be more like like he does have it's nice to just like but when you listen to the lyrics yeah.
The way I it's like, why is it a song like a big guitar solo? Why isn't it like that? It's just like that's what.
Right, yeah, to a certain power.
So this week for Greta Gerwig. Absolutely insane. Lady Bird and Little Women. You have to watch them whenever you get a chance. Greta Gerwig is my favorite modern dress. She's incredible.
Welcome everybody to this Steel Center discussion. Today the discussion will be led by Aiyla East, and you are Steel Center ambassador, and this is a task we have in the Steel Center for students to engage with philosophy and religious studies and lead discussions and run book groups and do all sorts of stuff. So we're very excited that Aiyla's going to be leading the discussion today on the Barbie movie, Barbie's First Feminism. Let's give them a warm welcome.
I wanted to do a little icebreaker just because we're going to be doing a lot of discussing at the end. And so I want you to tell me your name, your pronouns, and what Barbie you relate to the most, or maybe your own Barbie. So.
My name is Luke. My pronouns are he, him.
Wait, I should
What
probably
character?
Let me.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I'll introduce myself first. I forgot about that. But I'm Aiyla. I use they, them pronouns, and right now, I would say I'm presenter Barbie. I think I'm embracing that vibe, but I would say I relate to queer Barbie. So like Barbies that you grew up playing with, maybe Barbies you saw in the movie that you felt like you related to the most, or just a fun fact, just to get us warmed up.
Yes, my name is Luke. My pronouns are he, him. I don't know. My first instinct is weird Barbie, but that is the more that I think about that, that's like I don't know, a weird answer, I guess.
My name's Tyler. My pronouns are they, them. I don't know what Barbie I relate to the most. Definitely weird Barbie. Alan. He's there.
I'm Jamie Dow, and my pronouns are he, they, and I probably related to a mix of Sasha, Weird Barbie, and Alan in different ways. Sasha, probably more than
I'm Kaya. I go by Shiva, and I was probably gonna go Alan more than anything. I feel like I am Alan.
Joseph.
Yeah, so I'm Joseph. I use he, him pronouns, and I don't know. I mean, I know it's been said a lot, but probably Alan. I like he actually plays Michael Cera. I'm a huge Michael Cera fan, even though I couldn't remember his name. But yeah, so I like Michael Cera. I don't know if that's like a personality, like the Michael Cera personality. But I feel like Alan was definitely Michael Cera.
Hi, I'm Dr. Celeste. I use all pronouns, and I'm in here with Magic Hearing Ken. Would be who I feel most akin to.
It's fine. Okay, I'm Allison. I use she, her pronouns, and I'm feeling very President Barbie today.
Oh, nice. My name is Abbott. I use she, her pronouns, and for my Barbie, one of my favorite Barbies movie was Physicist Barbie. I'm not interested in physics, but I want to be a scientist, so I love physics.
I'm Dario, he, him pronouns, and I think probably the mom, Gloria, or
So yeah, I use any pronouns, and I didn't like grow up playing Barbies, but my parents got me a Barbie for my 18th birthday. And it was like one that was like recycled. And it's called like the Barbie Loves the Ocean Barbie. So I'm probably like that's like my favorite one. So I think that's the one I relate to.
My name is Sandra. I use they, them pronouns, and I feel like the Barbie I relate more to is like attorney Barbie. It's not like be an attorney or a lawyer to me.
I'm Bergen. I use she, they pronouns. I think I'm feeling mermaid Barbie, but I also like the mix of Alan, so you can imagine that. I'm Molly. I also brought my friend. One out of white elephant, so yeah. And I'm feeling like the mom and the daughter at the same time. Sometimes Alan. Everybody has a little Alan. I'm Kate, and she represents. And I think I relate to the talent. Like,
I'm Janice, I use she, hers. And I don't remember the teacher word name in the parents film, but I relate to teacher word.
My name is Margot. She, hers, mine. I think I'm relating. I
relate to one moment upstairs of Barbie when she is perfectly horizontal, like.
I'm Ellen. I use she, her pronouns. I relate to the Indigo Girls who provided the soundtrack.
You know, the song is not on the soundtrack. It's not on the Barbie soundtrack. I had to play it separately, but for some reason it's not on there. I'm not sure.
I played it like 3 times.
I know.
It's integral to the story.
Right. Would you like to introduce yourself?
I'm feeling the mix. I'm Emmy Corey, religion professor here, and I would like to say a marriage reverse character. That's probably true. That mom like got me, but I also feel like there's a little bit of Alan and a little bit of Mitch.
Would you like to introduce yourself with that?
Hi, I'm Christina Hill. I use she, her pronouns, and based on the conversation I had with my 10-year-old after watching Barbie together, we decided. I'm referring also sorry I'm missing who we identify with, that the weird Barbie seems to really have a good situation. He pointed out how she doesn't seem to be bound by pressures, and she seemed relaxed in ways that the other Barbies in Ken's weren't. And I thought, yes, thank you for teaching me that. And so, yes, that's what we're Barbies are.
Okay, so this is going to be mainly a student-led discussion, but I'm just going to give some background on the feminist movement throughout the years, Mattel's background, and their role in feminism, and then also just a small plot of the movie with some key scenes, and then I've got some questions to get us going. So early feminism was mainly talked about a lot in philosophy writing, and so Plato was actually one of the first people to declare that women have equal natural capacity to men, and then there was a Roman consul named Marcus Porcius Cato, and he has this quote where he said, "As soon as they begin to be your equals, they will have become your superiors," which I think is kind of foreshadowing into the patriarchy that is portrayed in the Barbie movie. But we can see how this has kind of remained to be thought by a lot of people in history, and that feminism is about putting females over men when it's really more about equality. And so feminism at its core belief is a belief in the political, economic, and cultural equality of women, namely in opposition to the patriarchal system. It doesn't really have to do with men themselves. But in the 15th century and the Enlightenment, multiple writers and philosophers continued to argue for feminism, including Margaret Cavendish, Christine de Pizan, and Mary Wollstonecraft. And then we also see in U.S. history that Abigail Adams, when her husband was kind of founding the country, she tried to make sure that women were going to have an equal status. She wasn't necessarily successful, but it did bring about the first wave of feminism, which at its core, it's about women's suffrage. And so this is where we're dealing with the Seneca Falls Convention in 1848 with Elizabeth Cady Stanton and Lucretia Mott. And really the only reason that we were able to get the right to vote was because men advocated that women should have the right, and also women's participation in World War I kind of showed that they were of equal capacity. And so that was kind of what pushed them to achieve women's suffrage. But it's interesting because you can see that New Zealand was the first country in 1893 to grant women's suffrage, and it wasn't until 1920 that America ended up doing so. So when we say that we're a very progressive country, we need to think about our history. But then we kind of go into after World War I and the Great Depression, women are essentially taking over the workforce and the economy. And so that means that they are now having issues with unequal pay. And so the second wave of feminism is more about women's liberation, especially in the workforce. So fighting for equal pay and making sure that they don't get discriminated against on the basis of sex. And then really the end of second wave feminism was Roe v. Wade getting passed in 1973, guaranteeing a woman's right to choose abortion. Fortunately, that was taken away. This kind of brings us into modern day feminism. There's a lot of struggles. It's kind of really the main question is what and who is a woman, really. It's about, we're kind of trying to figure out how to empower women without creating competition, how do we empower women without bringing men down, and we're starting to recognize that the system affects all of us and that men are affected as well as women. And so this kind of brings us into Barbie, but first I want to talk about Mattel's background. So as you can see, this doll was the first Barbie doll. It was created by Ruth Handler, who's in the movie. And it's actually based on a German adult themed Lily doll, which was really used as a gag gift for bachelors, but it did have that sexual innuendo. And Barbie was very heavily criticized for the unrealistic body proportions and the negative self-image that it inflicts on little girls. And actually I read that someone recreated what Barbie would look like if she was full size, and she would be 6 feet tall, weighing 110 pounds, have a 39-inch chest and an 18-inch waist, which, you know, anything about sizing, that is not possible. Or it's extremely unhealthy. And even early Barbies were extremely problematic, especially with the props they came with. So this book was actually for Babysitter Barbie. I don't know why Babysitter Barbie needed a book on how to lose weight, but that was included. And then the scale comes from Slumber Party Barbie, and as you can see, I don't know if you can see it too well, but it says 110 pounds. So it's kind of reinforcing that idea that you need to be tiny. And it's interesting because I think Ruth, we can make a lot of critiques against her and how she created this doll, but the way it seemed portrayed in the movie was that it really was in opposition to that idea of motherhood being the only option, and so encouraging females to play with real dolls that they can do different things with rather than taking care of a baby doll. But it seemed to be a little bit too adult themed in the way that Barbie is sexualized because of her body proportions. And there were many Barbies that advocated for women to pursue careers in those male-dominated fields, but the effects produced by just the image of the Barbie was so detrimental to girls that it ended up, there was a study done in 2006 where girls who played with Barbies ended up having they did the control and compared it to more like baby dolls and more modest dolls. And those who played with Barbies in swimsuits ended up having the most body, they didn't really see bodies. I'm trying to think of the way they worded it. It was an incorrect body image that they were having, just not a healthy one. But Barbie is also portrayed kind of as a bimbo in a way, especially, I don't know if you guys watched the Barbie Dreamhouse videos. You can kind of see how her attitude, it's like she is a professional woman, but she's not very smart. And all she seems to care about is image, things, her appearance, her clothes, partying with her friends, girls' night. And so it didn't really give any answers to women on how to enter these workforces. It just told them they're able to do it, but it didn't address all of the multiple problems that came with it. And then it ended up creating a negative effect on women. So Mattel is very problematic. And in 2016, I think, when Frozen came out, Mattel basically dropped, their sales dropped a lot, below $1 million a year, I think, which is insane for Mattel, and it's because Frozen portrayed this character who is all about female empowerment as an independent person, and like the dolls that they were making for her, I guess, weren't as sexual, and so people started buying Frozen dolls, and they weren't really buying Barbies or Kens or anything like that. And so the Barbie movie is really an attempt is Mattel's attempt at saving their company and trying to rejoin the feminist movement. Whether or not they're successful at it or just making things worse is what I'll leave up to you guys. But we've got Barbie and we've got Ken. Notice it's Barbie and Ken, and that's pretty apparent throughout the movie. Raise your hand if you have seen the movie. Cool. So I'm not gonna give like a plot or anything because I think we all know what happens, but it's basically like we've got two different enlightenment journeys. It's Barbie and Ken, and they end very differently, but both are finding themselves and kind of breaking out of those gender norms, and it can be interpreted as breaking out of those gender norms and finding themselves without needing to be Ken and Barbie. You can just be Ken and Barbie. But I've got some important scenes that I think we should watch. This is just the opening scene, and it's just kind of showing how it's like the destruction of the baby dolls and the idea of motherhood as the only option. Nope, you're right there. So you can kind of see how it's like creating this idea that Barbie saved the world with her appearance by crushing those stereotypes and achieving women equality for all, which, as we know, is not really reality. This is the scene where Sasha is criticizing Barbie, and so this really highlights the criticisms against Mattel as a whole.
You can make people feel bad about themselves and say that you you represent everything wrong. Sexualized talents, unrealistic discipline. You're describing something stereotypical. Barbie is. Look at yourself. You said the feminist movement actually youth destroyed reputations. Killing the planet with population grants and democracy.
Okay, so you can see like there are a lot of valid points that Sasha made. And so it really, the fact that Mattel greenlighted Greta Gerwig to let that be in the movie is a weird strategy to me. But it definitely, yeah, there's a lot of the sexualization, the capitalism of it all being about money but not really empowering women is like the big problem that people have with Barbie. And then this is the speech that Gloria America's character has, just kind of talking about what it is to be a woman.
Like, we have to always be extraordinary. But somehow we're always doing it wrong. You have to be thin, but not too thin. And you can never say you want to be thin. You have to say you want to be healthy, but also you have to be thin. You have to have money, but you can't ask for money because that hurts. You have to be a boss, but you can't be mean. You have to lead, but you can't squash other people's ideas. You're supposed to love being a mother, but don't talk about your kids all the damn time. You have to be a career woman, but also always be looking out for other people. You have to answer for men's bad behavior, which is insane, but if you point that out, you're accused of complaining. You're supposed to stay pretty for men, but not so pretty that you tempt them too much or that you threaten other women, because you're supposed to be a part of the sisterhood, but always stand out and always be grateful. But never forget that the system is rigged, so find a way to acknowledge that, but also always be grateful. You have to never get old, never be rude, never show off, never be selfish, never fall down, never fail, never show fear, never get out of line. It's too hard, it's too contradictory, and nobody gives you a medal or says thank you. And it turns out, in fact, that not only are you doing everything wrong, but also everything is your fault.
So I'm sure a lot of people can relate. I think one point I'll make before we get into the questions is that what she's saying can easily be applicable to men as well. And that's kind of, I have Ken's scene, but it's a little longer and I want to make sure we have time to discuss. But it's like Ken also has these expectations on him, and we find a lot of men struggling to be a man. And that's kind of what causes some of these negative actions. And it comes from a system. And that's something that I think this movie really highlights. But if we have time, we'll watch the I'm Just Kidding video at the end, because it is really fun. But these are some questions I have. We don't have to cover all of it, and if you guys want to talk about something else, feel free to. But I wanted to talk about whether or not it was intended as the Barbie movie a satirical approach to criticizing the modern feminism movement, especially in the sense that a matriarchy should be developed instead of a patriarchy. And is a matriarchy any better than a patriarchy? If not, then what should the end goal be? And then also, I'm just gonna read them all, and then we'll just talk about whatever. But was the movie successful in promoting feminist ideas, or did it cause further damage with the misrepresentation of what feminism is, if we can even know what that is, specifically womanhood within feminism? How does Barbie's enlightenment portray womanhood in the face of gender norms that come from either hierarchy or even a matriarchy? How is masculinity portrayed in opposition to femininity in the movie? Is masculinity real or simply something that has been created to give men tools of power? How does Ken's enlightenment portray manhood? Is this movie attempting to break gender norms or encourage them while still encouraging an independent mind that does not need to rely on the opposite sex for empowerment? Is that possible with gender norms? Is the representation of the movie diverse enough or included in the dialogue enough? What does Alan and Weird Barbie represent? And then also, I saw a TikTok video about this, but plus size Barbie never gets her legs shown. And I wanted to look that up before I began, but I think that is something that a lot of people that character was supposed to relate to, they felt a little betrayed by that in a sense. Or they just, it's like, why was everybody else, like even in the beach, everyone's got their swimsuits on and she's got pants on. So it's a little interesting. But those are my questions. So if anyone would like to start, you can answer anything, maybe propose a question yourself.
After watching the movie, the first time me and my friends went to go see it, we had a long discussion about like how the different Barbies and different characters in the movie represented different people in society.
Yeah.
And specifically with your last question of what does Alan, what they represent.
Yeah.
My best friend, he's trans,
Mhm.
and he said that he heavily related to Alan in the sense of he's a man, and he is, and that's his experience. But at the same time, he doesn't feel as connected with cis men because of the differentiating, I don't understand the experience, so I can't explain it as well as he did. But I definitely saw that throughout the movie where Alan is like trying to engage and trying to be a part of the Ken's world, but it's not the same. And
there's also one of
And the tagline is he can wear all of Ken's clothes.
Which
is really the tagline for Alan.
Yeah, I think I think Alan definitely represents like female to male trans people who just like men who aren't hyper masculine or they grew up kind of fighting that, or queer men, like really anything other than cis straight hyper masculine men. But it's like they're kind of forced to be that.
So my brother and I, my little brother, we went to the movie. I have two older brothers as well. So, but just one thing that really stuck out to me in the movie was like Ken's expectation that Barbie is his girlfriend. He's like he expects something from her because it's like it must be. And that kind of like if you've ever grown up with like a boy best friend and they're as you grow up they're kind of like this like gap closes and they would kind of like expect something more because you've grown up together even though you've never thought of them that way. And then also it's just like with having brothers, I know they don't think of me like as a woman, they think of me as their sister, like this other entity, which is really like it's disheartening because I don't know how they would treat other women because they don't think of me as a woman. I'm like, I deserve respect because I'm their sister. My mom deserves their respect because she raised them, that kind of thing. And I just don't really understand like how that paradigm can be shifted with this like how that paradigm can be shifted.
I think that's definitely interesting. I kind of saw Ken's like obsession with Barbie was like him trying to validate his own existence.
One of the things that like really stuck out to me when I watched the movie. Was like the part where she was like so scared of cellulite. But then like at the bus stop, she like compliments the old woman. She's like, "You're so beautiful." That part like made me cry. And it also highlighted the fact that like ever since I was like 12, my grandma's like making me do all this skincare stuff because she's like, "You don't want to get wrinkles, like you don't want to look old." And it's like, I'm 12, like I don't care. And I think it just really highlighted how like from such a young age, like women are pushed to like, do this so you don't look like you age gracefully. So you don't like look old when you are old, even though like that's how people age. Like why does it matter? But that was such an important part to me because it's like, one of the things you have to accept when you get older is that you're going to look older. Like your experiences, like everything you went through is gonna show up on your body. And like just accepting that is can be like very hard, especially when everyone is telling you to try all this new stuff so you don't look your age. So I thought that was such a like important part, and like it like genuinely made me cry when I saw that. So
Yeah, I think like I didn't really talk about the existentialism too much, maybe because I Dr. Brown's kind of incorporated some stuff. But yeah, no, I didn't agree with a lot of the movie, but the one thing that really stuck with me was like Barbie's journey and like being okay with dying. Because I think we all like it's hard to think about death and to come to terms with the fact that one day you won't exist. So I don't want to forget what else. But no, that's a really good point. But it's also like finding beauty within yourself. And to reiterate, it's like these gender norms that are crushing us. Like we keep enforcing them even though they keep hurting us. And I think this movie really highlighted that in any.
That's why I really like the inclusion of Weird Barbie, because I feel like Weird Barbie is people that exist outside the beauty standard and don't really care. And I kind of see like that being more representative of queer women because like obviously the male gaze is the priority. And so I just thought that seems really interesting when Barbie goes to talk to Weird Barbie about her cellulite. And she's like, "Oh my goodness," like, and Weird Barbie just exists chilling from the ceiling, always in a split, like because she'll never fit into that. Oh my gosh, do I have cellulite? And she's happy there. She's accepted it. Right. I just think that was really interesting. And not only like Weird Barbie was created by the children themselves too, like by like tweaking and experimental and
And like she's like the happiest,
she
like,
is
the genuinely happiest Barbie in the Barbie land. Like everyone else is in this weird like fantasy.
Weird Barbie's also the only one that explicitly talks about sex. Right? Because she mentions Ken's amorphous blob. Which stands out as, not just for me, it stands out as a scene that's very important, right? But yeah. Your discussion here made me wonder, does Barbie recognize beauty in the real world but not in Barbie land? Because that moment when she sees beauty in space, it's like distinctive.
I have two things. The first one is I find it really fascinating that the girl uses the word bimbo as an insult because there's actually a real like big reclamation of bimbofication that is happening, which is purposefully an FU to the idea that like in order to be respected as a woman, you have to be masculine. And that you have to desexualize yourself and do these sorts of things. And I'm just utterly fascinated and sort of like respectful of like the reclamation of bimbo status as like a proud identity. The second thing is, for your last question about diversity, what I think is really interesting is also that, like the first women's suffrage movement came at it was also fear of, well, if Black people have gained the right to vote, don't you want more white people to vote? Therefore, have white women vote. And there was quite a lot of the literature was purposefully saying, include white women, so that way it'll outweigh the new fact that Black men can vote. And then second wave, obviously, very much anti-queer women and stuff. So it is interesting that like, whether or not this is just kind of continuing, we have to sacrifice one thing or some people for the greater sort of, I don't have an answer to it, but.
Right. Well, and I think that comes with us, like, we keep trying to define womanhood, but it's like every time we define what a woman is, we're leaving out other people. And so, yeah, no, I think that I meant to talk about how like a lot of the shifts, the feminist movement has been mainly a white woman movement, and it does disclude people of color, and that's why there's a lot of like dissonance within the feminist movement, because we don't feel connected anymore, and it's to say we ever did is kind of, that's a question in and of itself. Yeah. Yes.
In terms of connection there, you're saying that made me just think about the experience of being in the movie theater before the Barbie viewing experience, and that was, I don't know whether it's just that I've been away from movie theaters for so long or what, but I've not seen a packed out, like, audience like that, and there was something about like the hallways and the restrooms and the concession line, and there just felt like this it reminded me of the Women's March, that kind of like that spirit of we share something that is common, that is expansive, at least in my mind. Like I'm like allowing this notion to be as inclusive as possible, which is my fantasy. But it just felt like there was a kind of goodness among the people there for this collaborative experience. And so like that's why I've been so excited about the popularity of the film, because how does the film then inadvertently or intentionally establish a better, broader, more loving, compassionate sense of community that all of these movements prior to now have been more exclusionary. So that's like my fantasy, thank you very much, but I don't know if that's what's happening.
I also think there's some benefit. I mean, sometimes you need a little fancy. Like, I was like thinking about even the diversity questions. Like, it was diverse enough for Barbie. Like, I mean, they're all literally named Barbie, so it's like insert person here to be Barbie. And I mean, it was the first movie I saw since I had a baby. And so it was just like I was a mess. Like, all I want is a flattering top. Like, you guys don't know. When you get older, you'll know that that's so important. And I don't know, I went with my sister and my nieces who are y'all's age, like college age, and didn't play with Barbies. But it was, I don't know, it was just a really nice, like, it was both an escape and a grounding thing. And I don't know there's more I wish the movie would do, but I also don't know how much a movie can do. I mean, movies can do a lot, but I don't know how much a Barbie movie, I don't know.
Especially under like Mattel.
Well, and it's a first. I mean, like, you have to acknowledge it's a first. That was huge.
So I guess another question, like, did they do enough with what they had? Yes, sorry.
I was gonna say that I made it a point, like after seeing it, like my brother, we would do a double feature of Barbie and Oppenheimer. Which that was a fun comparison. Anyways, you can tell the types of, I don't want to be like generalizing here, but you can tell the types of men who went to watch Barbie and Oppenheimer by them not like, and how they don't understand. They didn't really understand the message of Barbie. They're just seeing it because it appeals to their girl best friends and their girlfriends and mothers. And so I made it a point to make my brother watch it because he was only planning to see Oppenheimer, and I was like, "You need to watch this movie." He's pretty like feminist and cool or whatever, but he has a tendency to overlook certain messages, and even some other men in my family are like, "I don't like message movies." I'm like, okay, but every movie has a message, though, and this one is a really good one, so you might as well. And it's Barbie, though, like it's Barbie, so I think it's important for literally everybody to watch. Very important for everybody to watch.
And I think it reached a lot of people, especially in rural cities, because like, dads were taking their daughters to see it, and like, I don't know,
the South, Alabama, places like that. And so, yes, it did make a lot of people angry, but just the fact that they saw it is like huge. Because whether or not they like it, those ideas are now they are gonna go into the world and recognize these things that happen.
These are also the same men who think that The Godfather is the height of cinema, so just keep that in mind.
Something I liked about the movie was like the shifts from like Barbie Land to like the real world. And I feel like in a way Barbie Land like showed like that we are so caught up in like our own problems in business. And like when Barbie goes to the real world, she like realizes all these problems that people are facing. So I think it's like really good that it's like telling us to like take a moment to step back from like your own personal problems and have empathy towards other people around you, because you don't know what they're going through. And like they may seem fine, but there's still so many issues going on that we just tend to ignore.
I think there's value in the Barbie movie, even if it is relatable and like maybe a little corporate. Just in the community, like we just got over COVID. Roe v. Wade was just overturned. If you're a queer person, things are looking great right now. You're paying attention to the news. And like, so what, we want to wear pink and say hi Barbie to each other in those session line and eat our popcorn and watch this movie and giggle about it. And if that's all the value it brings, then like that's freaking something.
Yeah, I also think now when I talked about like, can you still aesthetically appreciate the movie without like having to worry about the other factors that it produces? And I think, yeah, I mean, especially like as people who are already aware of feminism and the problems that the patriarchy brings, I think it definitely was. That's why I called it Baby's First Feminism, is because it's like, if you know what feminism is, this wasn't like some groundbreaking idea. But for people who like, this is literally the first time they're actually understanding what it is. Like it's Baby's First Feminism. Like it's simple and to the point. But yeah. Yes.
I think there's great value in that idea of journey from Barbie land or whatever land to what the real world seems to be. Although I don't know if anybody can totally encapsulate what that is, because we all come at it differently. But and that's where I love the music and the back and forth there. And something was happening each time that the trip was made that would affect both worlds. And isn't that just whether it's about Barbie or it's about whatever constructs or big important questions that we're wrestling with in our minds, in our worlds, and our thinking about that, isn't it powerful to be reminded that we're on a journey with it? Other people are on a journey with it, and even if we don't seem to find ourselves or others or the world getting where we love for it to be as quickly as we want, the fact that we are on that journey and conscious of it and doing it and being bold about that is making a difference inside and out around us.
Yeah, I think that one of the optimistic and beautiful moments is when she's like, hey, anyone ever think about death? And then it really changes, but like I think that her journey is about this like vulnerability of the body, right? Because a doll doesn't have a body. And being in the real world, she comes to have a body. And the body enables you to have empathy with others and enables you to be like vulnerable to others. So it's like this openness in the character. And she chooses that, right? Like she decides to live in the real world rather than to live in Barbie. And so what she chooses is pain and suffering and living towards death, right? And I love that scene when she's like, this feeling. I don't know what it is. It's like stress or, you know, and this person just walks by randomly and says, that's anxiety, right? which is like, you know, that person has a body, right? So they can tell Barbie what that's like. And I just love that that's what she's realizing. Like that's part of the journey, is this perception of emotions in our bodies. But then I guess in the end too, I have this conflict, which is, you know, she doesn't have genitalia, and she chooses, and the last scene is that she goes to the gynecologist, right? Which we have to talk about, because that's like, right? Does she have a vagina, or is she choosing to get one? Did she get one? How did that work?
Is that what
right?
makes her a real woman?
Is that what makes her a real woman? Like
Yeah.
that, I think that's at the end, I kind of gasped. I was like,
Yeah.
is this what makes her a real woman in the real world? Because that seems, you know, deeply exclusionary, right? So can we talk about that? Embodiment and
I was gonna kind of go off your point about the vulnerability part. I thought it was funny how you were talking about vulnerability and how she's like insecure, and then the last scene is her going to do the most vulnerable thing, one of the most vulnerable things that you can do, which is go to the gynecologist. And about the how did she has with that, I think she just like the fact that the Barbie world is also like not true or not real, and she can magically develop reproductive organs as well. I feel. And because now she has a new set of reproductive organs, she has to go check them out, see what's going on down there. So, I love that scene, and she's also wearing pink Birkenstocks, which is it's my favorite scene.
It felt a little weirdly placed, like just to be the end, like felt like
It felt like a gag almost. It
Yeah.
felt like it was just for a laugh, when genitalia doesn't really make a woman.
which I guess we're assuming that she's going to the gynecologist because she has genitalia, but I mean I don't know, but like I would assume trans women would go to a gynecologist as well. So maybe I don't know, but
It just so
Yeah.
it's odd.
Yeah.
It's just a weird way to do
it's
it.
very open-ended, which the whole movie really is. Got about 10 minutes left, so we can talk about
why does Ken like horses?
He's
He was on top of
that was like when he went to the library, he's like looking at like what makes a man, and it's like horses. And
Ronald Reagan like horses.
yes,
so-
there, and then he sees all these you know men in the world that are super successful. He's like the man on the horse.
Specifically him saying whenever he found out that patriarchy wasn't just about horses and he lost interest, it's so like, oh, well, yeah, that makes sense, doesn't it?
That was such a great, I love that one. Because it was just like, I mean, and you alluded to this, Aiyla, but like, it was this is exhausting. Like keeping this up is exhausting on all levels for everyone.
Yeah.
And even when you lose interest, you still have to like maintain.
Right.
Yeah, I like the scene with the Ken's battling it out in competition with sports equipment, because that is like the commitment that masculinity, you know, throws you into. You're thrown into like, you have to be competitive, and you have to, you know, play war games, and you have to, you know, use sports equipment not for the sports but as weapons, and you have to.
That's funny.
Right?
That's what you see in that scene, because all I saw was like a dream dance sequence.
Is when the Kens unite in community cooperatively, and blue and pink are brought together. Perfect. That's after, and dancing becomes like the cooperative structuring, like restructuring theme.
See, no, I just saw them doing a dance sequence while the women were taking back the Constitution. It's beautiful.
Well, I guess I see it as like there's like a competition cooperation conflict in the theme, right? So like men are competitive and aggressive and violent, and women are cooperative and get, you know, together and have community. And these are two things that are in opposition to each other, and they somehow get resolved in uncomfortable ways or whatever. I mean, I don't know. That's my read.
I like that.
I love that disco scene, the Kens dancing together and reuniting.
Something that I thought was really interesting was like how easy it was to like manipulate Ken into being this hyper masculine person. Because it kind of reminded me of like I watched The Social Dilemma like right before that, and like how easy it is for young men to fall into like the right wing, like super hyper masculine part of like the internet so easily. Like they watch like one video and then they get like 5 or 10 videos recommended about like how women are bad or like women are doing this wrong or that wrong. And it's like it was just really interesting to me like how easily he went from being someone who like didn't know anything about this at all to like embracing it so fully to the point where like he was like ready to like, you know, kind of make it like Ken land instead of Barbie land. I just thought that was really interesting and like pointed out like how harmful that can be. If it's not like if people like don't regulate the content they view or like the media they look at. Yeah.
Well, and I think, and the problem comes from it's like men are in competition with each other, women are in competition with each other, men and women are in competition with each other. So it's like no one is giving each other a safe space, and it's like, you know, Hendrix, I think we have a really large queer community, but it's like queer in any sense, but it's like I have seen that like there is much more community when it's like it's not about gender norms or about sexual orientation, like it's just being there for each other. But also I don't, within both like men and women, we are not very forgiving, and it's like we see men make mistakes, but we don't really want to forgive them because it hurts us, but we don't recognize that it's like it is a systemic problem. And I'm not saying that like men shouldn't be like held accountable, but I think we need to consider that there's a lot of factors going into it rather than just their individual character. And I think that's where it comes from, is because it's like men feel like they'll never win with women, like women will never see them as like someone who respects them. Oh, well, it's just kind of going back to like Ken. He like at the beginning of the movie, the Kens are just like they're children, they're boys. Like the beach off that scene is gonna beat you up. That it was like we see his progression, and there's definitely like that is so true with like how easy it is to get like, because you're trying to impress other men. And I don't know if any of you listened to Brittany Broski's podcast, but yesterday she said, or in the last podcast episode, she said that men are also subjected to the male gaze. And I thought that was like, that's so true, I think. And so I just thought that was really interesting. And, you know, we see him progress from just, you know, this innocence, like the Barbies are his mom, and simultaneously like his best friend, his girlfriend. And then it's just, and then, yeah, it's just so easy to get off the track.
When you can see like he's even fighting for the other Ken's attention on Barbie. So it's like,
I mean, I think just like one thing that didn't sit exactly right with me was like the whole like existence of the Barbie world. And just being like this, like it almost felt like religious to me in a sense, like it being this like space that is like separated but like bound to like reality. And also like there's like a couple of other implications in there, like Ken being created as like this complement to Barbie and also after Barbie, which like I don't necessarily think that might be like true of how maybe gender dynamics work in like the real world. Or at least how like masculinity and like how all that's structured. But I also think that like there's some things with like with it being like mostly like Barbie and Ken, like these two different dolls, you know what I mean? It's like, I don't know if that's like also how like, you know, people experience gender, but like, again, like it's a Barbie movie, what did I want, you know? But also, I think the one thing that was just like the most interesting to me was the very end where Barbie becomes like a real person. Because to me, this was like a very Christ-like moment. In the sense, specifically like Hegel, he had the whole idea about Christ, God, alienated figure, comes down, becomes Christ. We can relate to Christ. Christ is man. Like I think in some sense, like this movie is meant to make Barbie a little bit more relatable, like literally to bring Barbie into the real world. And I don't know.
That's a great point.
I also think that's really interesting thinking about how they came out with this new line of dolls. I don't know if y'all have noticed, where it's like actually realistic body types and like
There's like these ones, which are like, I don't know.
It's the first time I've seen like curvy Barbies of like range of skin tones and like consistently in its own line. So I feel like that happened first, and that this is like in a way a market for marketing.
I think it's interesting that you bring up physical references because whenever I was watching it, as somebody who grew up in reference, but doesn't, you know, go to church or isn't Christian anymore, I did see a lot of biblical references. But like, so like how you said, like there was normally it's Adam then Eve, but this was just based on how the success that she made Ken. So be along with her, like how Adam was there and then made Eve so they could procreate and actually produce something good. And I see Weird Barbie as kind of like the snake in this situation, but like in my mind, hear me out. The Adam and Eve story, the snake, I don't think was completely wrong. And I think that Weird Barbie is like what the snake was trying to say. Like there is, you want to be educated, right? You don't want to just live in delusion and ignorance, because I mean ignorance might be bliss, but there's still like shit going on out there, and you should be aware of it. And all of this kind of stuff, like knowledge is power, and it's not necessarily that thing.
There's a whole line of theology that agrees with you, and it's called process theology. So there you go. You're not alone.
Well, I think on that interpretation too, Eve, I don't think there's a feminist reading of Eve's choice. It's like sort of, she's like manipulated. She like desires for desire's sake. So I think it's that, the way you're reading, it seems like it's also weird. The weird Barbie is like, you don't have a choice, like you have to choose the Birkenstock, right? And that's parallel, but it's also she is choosing to exist in the world in a different way. Like she's choosing knowledge or choosing empathy or having a body, that kind of thing. It's legitimately choosing, not just like having the impulse that she can't control. So I don't know. My sense of the Eve story is like a little bit like I'm critical. I don't see a way of like finding an empowering story for women.
That depends on if you think we're in the fallen world.
Yeah.
If you don't, then it is.
Right. Yeah.
That first scene, especially like God is like, you know, like bringing Barbies into the world. Like,
that first scene is like it's 2001, The Space Odyssey, and I think that
It's
there's
just a creation story.
yeah. But like specifically, it is like a one-to-one recreation, like the baby doll being drawn up being the first weapon, the tool, especially with like how music is intertwined in the story. It's about how gender is expressed through art as well. And like we were talking about in Matchbox 20 before, that like there's a kind of coalition of gendered art almost, where like in film and like film and music circles you have like the like kind of like you have gendered art in that like Stanley Kubrick's like filmography is typically seen as like the films that like estranged or like not estranged. I'm losing my words, but like kind of like embittered like young alienated men kind of tend towards. Similarly in like the Matchbox 20 stuff, and I think that there's a slant there that you can look at. Sorry.
No, that was good.
Oh, thanks so much, Aiyla, for leading the discussion.
I'll put up the video if anyone wants to watch.
And yeah, thank you. And next week, Wednesday, October 4th, we will have a visitor via Zoom who will be talking about Taylor Swift and the philosophy of re-recording. Brandon Polite is a philosopher of aesthetics, and he focuses on philosophy of music, and he's going to be talking about Taylor Swift's different versions. So please come for that. Thanks so much for everybody for coming.
Yes, thank you. Watch the I'm the Skin video. I'm gonna put it on. You